Our next guest is something going on with her, right?
Yeah, all guests come to you from the Folsom Lake Hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop.
Yo! The analyst for the Sacramento Kings, my former best friend, and somebody who I get to talk to her once a week on this show, so it's neat. The one, the only Kayte Christensen. Good morning, Kayte.
Good morning, David. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning. How'd you feel about that label, former
best
friend?
It's just Dave goes through these phases where he's like plays the super needy friend.
Just saying.
And that's just what he's doing right now.
Been back from the road for 2 days. I haven't heard.
I'm so used to it. Yeah, maybe it's because I was gone for like 8 days and I've got 2 kids and had a bunch of bags to unpack and like a bunch of Halloween to put away. Like maybe I have like adult responsibilities.
You know what? I have 2 kids and 2 dogs and a wife and a dog, a mother-in-law.
Your wife does everything.
Actually, a great point. What do you think, Kayte? Would DeMarcus Cousins fit in on this team? They need a stretch.
Is that what you guys are talking about?
That's what I was. Jason's innocent.
I guess, theoretically, yes. Like if you're just looking at things on paper, because, obviously I think, I don't know that I would term DeMarcus like a rim protector per se.
Sure, I agree. I agree.
And I think that that's kind of the one thing that I question because they do need, I feel like, a kind of a defensive-oriented rim protector that can stretch the floor. I think that that is something that would help in terms of filling out the roster that has size and kind of take some of the pressure off of Domas because, quite honestly, like people have talked a lot about his fouling problems and whatnot. The Kings are asking Domas to do a lot.
Correct.
A lot on both ends of the floor. And I think that he has handled it extremely well considering how much they're putting on his plate. And yes, there has been foul trouble and yes, there have been things like that. But I quite honestly think that, adding somebody that kind of fits the bill of what I just said would really make a difference. But, that I think still we're early in the season and we're finally starting to get a fairly decent grasp on like personnel and needs and all of that. And that's what you expect when you're adding pieces. So we'll see what Monty McNair does. But I mean, my question with DeMarcus Cousins, to be honest, is like, when DeMarcus was here, he was the franchise player.
Yep.
Would DeMarcus be able to come in from the perspective of he's coming in as a role player off the bench?
I've heard at this point, I've heard at this point 2 things. There's rumors that he's at 265, which if you know what his weight was before is insanely sculpted and would be open to a non-guaranteed. He just wants to get back in the league. I say take a flyer.
And that's another thing. Like he absolutely, and this is where, professional sports kind of humbles you. He went through some injuries at really critical times in his career where, if you think like, had he stayed with the Kings and that injury never happened, he would have, backed the brink truck up. You know what I mean? Like, and now he's fighting to get in the league to remain in and get a foothold again because injuries kind of derailed it. So yeah, it does. It can humble you.
Kayte, another thing Dave and I were talking about is the frustrations with the last 2-minute report. We know what happened. We know what the league has come out and said. Do you think there's any chance, though, Kayte, that can kind of be amongst the team and Coach Brown kind of a rallying cry of the, kind of us against the world kind of mentality?
I do. And I think that the way that Coach Brown has handled the media in those situations is incredibly brilliant in terms of, I think it's very intentional. I think that this is something that a coach of his caliber knows that he needs to do to let his locker room know that he supports you regardless if there's a fine involved or not. But that he's going to be the voice of the team and players aren't going to feel the need to defend it, to speak up and say things because their coach is kind of leading that charge. The frustration with me with the last 2-minute report is like, we all saw it. We all see these things happen. Like the league admitting it and being kind of, transparent about it. I like it. And I hate it at the same time because it doesn't matter for the team that kind of screwed over. But it does matter in the terms of, okay, these officials are graded. And so it's like, he gets an F for that game in my mind. And that impacts things down the road. They won't be doing playoff games. They won't like that. Those all of those things are cumulative. And so it matters in that sense. So I can see the value in it from that point of view. But when you're the team that 2 times on a road trip gets screwed on a last second call that could have completely changed the course of the game, the Kings went 2-2 on this road trip. There was 2 calls away from the potential, a very high potential of going 4-0.
Kayte Christensen joining us. Oh,
brutal.
sorry. You gave me a pregnant pause. Jeez. I thought, sorry to interrupt you. Kayte.
Well, because that was me filtering myself and not saying a bad word.
Hey, seriously, how close did you come to swearing on the broadcast?
On the broadcast?
Yeah.
No, I'm pretty good.
I know you are.
At stepping out of that. I think having kids helps a lot with that too.
You know, when you look at that breakdown, so Jason and I were talking about it earlier, and you made the point. Just because, even if they'd gotten both calls in Miami and Golden State, that just means you go to overtime, and that's if Herter makes all 3. So let's call it a split. Let's say they have a 3-1 road trip. Jason talked about the bonding within the team, and we talked about how there's no better bonder amongst athletes than the us against the world mentality. But also, Kayte, maybe in the long run, if we're trying to put a really positive spin on this, not only do you get some extra bonding, but I feel like Mike Brown and the rest of the team have been very classy in how they've dealt with this towards the refs. Maybe it starts to change the narrative and refs begin to see that the Kings have been getting disrespected and don't deserve it.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you say it, Dave, because you sent out the gif of DeMarcus, or not even the gif, you sent out the interview part of it.
Getting ridiculous, man. I mean, it is ridiculous.
Ridiculous, yeah.
And you tried to not laugh, by the way.
Yeah, the way that, I was certainly not close to laugh.
Oh, I thought thought when he started, I thought you turned away, and I thought I saw you trying to because he can. Okay.
Well, usually they go from a 2-shot to a 1-shot.
Right.
I had hair in my mouth. So that was just the dynamic of that. But no, I was more concerned about cussing on live TV.
Right.
And that's where because I know DeMarcus. I've been around him for years. I know the potential for explosion, and having it happen on live TV while I'm the one holding the microphone is always it was scary.
Yes.
That was what I was worried about. But no, it's the point of that is. How you handle it is very important in terms of how you are treated going forward. That's just logic, right? And you do make a really good point that the players and Mike Brown have handled it flawlessly. They've made their point. They haven't berated. They've said they had a tough job. They've said that they made mistakes. There's things they got to get better at, but that it's not fair for an official to miss at the end of a game in a situation like that twice.
Kayte,
they handled it well.
Yeah. How does this team get more out of Harrison Barnes?
That's a really, really, really good question. So one of the things that is very different about Mike Brown's offense is there's not any play calling. It is a motion offense. It's run kind of through Domas. One of the things that Harrison has done well, and when he's had pretty good games, he's had a couple where he scored well, is just backdoor cutting and that kind of thing, attacking the rim. So I believe when they started the game against Golden State, he was 5-26 or 5-27 from long range through 7 or 8 games. Looking back at the same last year, I believe that he had made 26 threes at the same juncture last year. Now he got off to that hot start, but he also had shot a way higher volume. So this offense is not geared towards getting buckets for anybody. It is geared towards motion, moving, cutting, and kind of a 2-man game between Domas and Kevin Herter, or Domas and De'Aaron. And so really it's kind of, in my brain, I'm trying to figure it out as well. But the buckets will find him if they're there. But I also feel like he's playing a little bit lackadaisical, not looking for opportunities, not kind of imposing himself on the game maybe the way that he could. So it's just been a really awkward fit this year so far for him, trying to figure out his place in this offense.
Lastly, Kayte, and we've only got 20 seconds here, but I do want to compliment the two of you. Being able to get through that game when I think there was actually human sacrifices happening behind you.
Miami.
Well done.
Yeah.
They're mentioning it on the text line, and
if she didn't swear then she's going to be fine.
Like, seriously, well done. Good job.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the bigger broadcasting challenges of my short career, yes.
I love how you said, like, I'm not used to this type of noise. I'm like, that's a Wednesday afternoon at your house. What are you talking about? The dogs?
No, I discipline my child. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll talk to you in a week.
All right, you guys have a good one.
All right.
That's Kayte Christensen. When we come back, why